Wow. Uh, Wait. I can mute this one. Yeah. Okay. Just wait. There it is. There it is. There it is. It works. Do we have audio? Yeah. Thank you. It maximally works or something like that. It works. The point is, it works. I am happy enough with that, so I don't have to complain about that. Thank you. Why is go.ensign not opening? Did it crash or something? Okay, there it is. There we go. There we go. It works. Now it works. Green screen. Wow. Here we are. Let's see. Okay. We are quite fine. Ah, no. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There it is. Ah, there it is. I probably, as a probable thing, not a completely correct one, but probably I kinda forgot to not to record like as an obligation, but like it would have been quite a nice idea to actually sit down and indeed continue reading some stuff. I don't know. Do I have to link that here? I don't think we have to link that here. The point is there is that one channel that has stuff that is related to things like uh, reading stuff and whatnot. So it's interesting to not interesting. It's like necessary, let's say, to actually sit down and continue reading that. Yeah, luckily enough, it does work for me. I wasn't so wrong when I said, yeah, I if I don't force myself to sit down, I am actually never going to truly sit down. So it works, but I also procrastinate way too much. I don't know, whatever. The point is, yeah, I should keep reading. Not today. Today we are not here to read anything. So give me a second. I have water. I don't like that I have water that isn't cold. It's like from when the day began. Like it's 12 hours old water. So it's hot and I fucking hate this. Well, it isn't all that bad. So anyway, give me a second. Yeah, give me a second. We aren't actually starting yet. We have like 2 minutes left. So thank you for your patience. Ah, I, I, I. Sorry. Uh, uh, anyways, the point is, I think I don't, I personally, me, you know. Wait, wait, wait a second, wait. Give me, give me a second. There we go. Thank you. Today, nothing. Thank you. No, I don't know. Yeah, it's. I haven't. I remember I wanted to put something in the text field. I kind of already forgot what it was. So we are instead going with that. Nothing. Quote unquote. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting day. I guess it's quite crazy actually to think about that in terms of wow. Yeah, you know what? Today is going to be quite a challenging day in a way. Not particularly because it truly is challenging, but rather there are so many things to talk about. It's quite a crazy thing to be alive. I guess I don't know, bro. Existence, as you know of it, as we know it. It's quite crazy. So it's it feels like one of those. I forgot to renew my subscription. I'm fucked up. Anyways, um, that's not the point. The point is, yeah, today we get to finally be here. I have grown quite fond of this format, particularly not actually having anything to say in terms of not 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 having anything to say, not having a particular structure to follow. So that feels good. Um, I guess it's quite more simple in many ways, so that's already good enough, or that's far simpler, let's say. So yeah, the point is, here we are, and it's it's good. It has been quite a long week in many ways. I did I start this week or no? It has been already like 2 weeks since I hurt my knee, so that has been a whole lot of adventure. Or no, not exactly adventure. It's more like fucking pain, actually. But the point is, yeah, survive some. I wouldn't say lesions. It's more like why you just survive accidents. Let's say it like that. Yeah. Surviving accidents. The accidents of in that we find in life are good things. It's like things are bound to happen of that nature in terms of oh yeah, one day you're not going to be expecting that, and you are going to probably have some sort of encounter with the unknown in which you end up somehow finding out that indeed you are going to end up I am not going to say exactly hurting yourself, but certainly in some way, shape, or form, somehow getting hurt by what happens as the outcome of the event itself. Not because you want that to happen, but unavoidably because things can go like that, and it isn't like every single day works like that, but unavoidably it's good to, I guess, be conscious about that possibility, and it's I don't know. It's interesting to see that nothing bad truly happens. It's just, yeah, at least I guess to some degree it supposedly has to do with quote unquote being not exactly being young, but rather being healthy enough. It isn't so much about being young or old. It's more along the lines of being stable enough so that events like that one don't actually become far more dangerous or far more substantial in terms of consequences. I guess that's the proper way to think about that. So from there on, it's it's nice, it's fine, it's understandable, and I don't truly have something to complain about from that point of view. It's just life. Life happens as always, and it's the expected thing. You just survive whatever life throws at you, and that's good enough. Once again, it wasn't even a serious lesion or anything like that, so it's good. Point being, I don't know. It has been quite a good week lately, I guess. It has been a, I would say not just a good week, but more like a good entire, I wouldn't say year, I guess month. Probably that's a good enough time frame, yeah. On, yeah, in one hand, certainly. It's quite crazy to see that it's so surprising to find out how much things become far more simpler to understand. Yeah, I I will say it is a wonderful experience to finally feel like one gets to understand the stuff. I don't actually know if it comes from the side of losing that thing of the self-doubt and whatnot. I wouldn't exactly frame it on that. I guess it has more to do. I I always try to assume or discuss it from the perspective of, yeah, most things don't make sense unless you actually understand all the ideas that you're trying to talk about. So it's not exactly impossible, but rather far more complicated for anyone to actually get an impression on stuff and reach conclusions, let's say like that, if you don't get to, yeah, it's a reasonable idea. If you don't get to truly sit down and see all the stuff that is related to what you are trying to learn, and in that sense, it's a for teachers experience, nice experience basically, a nice experience to sit at the end there. Um, Most of what has this year to offer has already been learned. I and yeah, on one hand, on overly, it's good to see that still anybody. I always try to say it from that perspective. I don't think I am that much different from anyone else. That's why I like to say anybody can actually utilize their time on learning and discovering and creating knowledge and being capable of integrating far more ideas onto what they already understand in any area of life and such, and that all of that happens and it's good, and to keep seeing that still happening even nowadays is good. And sadly, one of the only things that has happened so far is unavoidably to see at some point there are so many similar ideas from so many areas of from so many different areas of knowledge that share backgrounds and that become, when you analyze the roots, I guess, become way too close with one another, that at that point it does get a lot more difficult to actually, I wouldn't say separate the conclusions, but rather not feel like, to some degree, we are talking about not so many different things in a way. I guess I always try not exactly to talk about that. I have still to find a more proper way to articulate that whole idea, but there is something funny that happens when you read stuff that, yeah, is related to psychology and philosophy and whatnot, and that is, it's quite crazy to see how many of those things are in constant relation with one another. At least in my area of knowledge, there is that whole other aspect of the more scientific psychology and the whole more professional side and unavoidably, yeah, more academical area of that. But it's to some degree, it's also like the more modern, quote unquote, or yeah, more actual, current, that's the word, philosophy that also is to some degree far more focused on certain areas of life, but at the same time, it's also an interesting question, or an interesting observation, let's say, not a question, like an observation of, okay, but to some degree, how much I actually want to go on to something incredibly specific, like, oh yeah, let's think out only this one particular disease, this one particular area of knowledge, and then try to solve only that and nothing else. Everything else that isn't that doesn't deserve to be thought about, and everything else that isn't this one phenomena that I am thinking about is something that I should never utilize my time on, and that I never have to worry myself about, because I will be dedicating myself only to the most incredibly specific phenomena. And I, yeah, I don't think it truly works. I don't think it truly gets to be in any way something nice to do that, to get accustomed to having only that happening. It's sciences, social sciences, allow themselves to be utilized in far more wide aspects of knowledge and areas of life than what we have reduced them to nowadays, sadly. But in anyways, the point is not to criticize, it's just I was trying to say. It happens that many of those things end up sharing roots and once again being in conversation with one another, and right now what happens is I find myself actually quite surprised with how little new developments I can actually get to experience. To some degree, I don't want to say, I guess it's like a bad word in a sense, or a, yeah, a bad idea in a way, to say that, oh yeah, most of the big developments don't actually get to be all that important, because many of them are just rephrasings and repurposing of already stated things and such, and that is in a way incredibly reductionist unavoidably, but at the same time, I don't know, man. I don't find myself surprised, because I find that all the postulations that exist out there are of the most influential kind, or of the most innovative kind, let's say. And yeah, I do still have a lot of stuff to keep on reading and to keep on experiencing and exploring and such. But I guess it will be something along the lines of, for anybody who is interested in reading, for anybody who is interested in developing wide enough knowledge about the media and such, or not just media, about the, yeah, a collection of the knowledge itself that is already available out there, I guess the conclusion is it can actually happen. It's despite how much we like to say, there is this endless discussion of, oh yeah, we have developed ourselves as a civilization for so many years and whatnot. At least many of the social sciences don't actually have that many deep concepts, I guess. Once again, you can actually over specialize onto one area and maybe spend your whole existence into just, I don't know, understanding how the let me give a personal example, okay? Um, understand how the Argentinian economics of somebody who might get the possibility of living in the biggest city of the country, aka Buenos Aires, um, works, and how somebody of that on that level of life who might not be classified even in the middle class gets to ascend onto, and yeah, you can spend your whole life onto that unavoidably, but besides those incredibly specific ways of focusing on things, everything else is not so complicated. The more, I guess, yeah, the more general notions are quite a few in terms of how much time you actually have to invest for the sake of being enough. And I guess it's a positive conclusion in a sense that, yeah, everybody can actually do that. I would assume that every single person who is, there is this whole idea on OW of, I have to want to learn all the stuff to get to do that. Sadly, I cannot be force fed knowledge, so to speak. So it cannot happen that I will learn no matter what. It needs to happen willfully, but as long as it is happening out of an interest, at least here, from my own experience, social sciences are not that complicated, luckily enough, so that's nice. But at the same time, as I always say, I don't know, there is so much stuff still out there to see and to discover and to experience. That's far nicer, I guess. That's far more useful. And I am still. It's not like I am sitting here saying, "Oh yeah, there is." Then things get to feel quite repetitive. Therefore, nothing else works. It's meaningless to explore all the things that are created. One of the few lessons, I guess, that you get to actually acquire throughout that whole process of endless repetition is to see that, yeah, luckily enough, it happens also that you can actually, I guess, yeah, it's hone your capacity and decipher how to continuously keep on growing in specialties, in all the areas in which you are utilizing your time to learn. And unavoidably, that is the implied conclusion, that is what anybody should be experiencing. But it's like, I don't know, at the same time, it's not like what the average discourse also says. In many cases, the average, I don't want to say the average person, the mainstream discourse end up being something along the lines of, or the prejudice, let's say like that. The prejudice is, oh yeah, it's of no use to actually want to learn about anything that might take you years or decades, because it's, if it is something that actually requires so much, what actually guarantees that you're going to learn out anything of that sort? What ensures that your time will be well spent on something that will actually give you results of any sort? I'm not even trying to talk about the result, it's just trying to learn out anything. And that, at that point, it's funny to see that, yeah, indeed it can happen, but I don't know. It's the endless, or it's the, yeah, it was the correct expression. The endless necessity of patience, unavoidably, all of this stuff requires a fucking lot of patience, but that's good. I mean, why why will it be bad to actually learn that not everything gets to happen instantaneously? Sadly, yeah. On the other hand, and that in that sense, it is the mainstream. Things are slowly becoming far more stupid, I guess, but I I don't think that we. It's not that we are not qualified. It's in that sense I can actually accept that. I like to not think out the other as negative side. I don't know, man. I think it's quite depressive to actually try to think out how much we might be. I wouldn't say dooming ourselves, but it's sort of not so good. The current direction that we have in life in terms of on the bigger scheme of things, how much we are allowing stuff like AI and whatnot to become so present. But all of that is good anyways. It's I wouldn't say it's exactly the idea of, oh yeah, it is a problem, but it isn't my problem, so I don't actually have to worry about that. It does feel a lot more along the lines of it can be a problem, but right now we have to believe that it isn't actually that much of a problem fully. It seems to be that so far we are truly having a good enough capacity to repel anything in the bigger scheme of things. As a society, we haven't truly succumbed onto or against the AIs, so that's nice. But I don't know, man. It's still it doesn't make it any less crazy. Although, wait. I was thinking about that. I and I have seen something incredibly weird happen lately. I don't. I am truly curious. I don't know who to talk that with, but it's incredibly crazy to see. Once again, what I suppose is the mainstream seems to be focusing quite a lot more on meta meta comedy. I don't think it is the proper category. It's more along the lines of those type of jokes in which I guess true comedy, more along the lines of true comedy, not just a meme, but rather a proper joke in basing ourselves in that eternal line of, oh yeah, art should serve to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable and such, something along those lines. I think we are slowly getting onto that area with comedy, or we are. I don't. That once again, I don't truly know. I feel like, but I fear being way too much in an echo chamber of sorts with what I personally like to consume, therefore only consuming that sort of content and whatnot. But it does feel like most of the stuff that gets produced out there by this whole, I see it as the whole wave, the whole generation of people who started to utilize internet around the same time as me. I don't think, I don't even remember the proper numbers. I think it's like the generation from 2003 to like 1995, something like that. I think I belong to that generation. I don't remember exactly the fucking generations and their names and whatnot. I don't know them. Sorry for being uninformed. The point is that generation and the previous one seem to be doing a good enough job at, that's where I am trying to go. Creating something that, in this case, through the basic form is memes, but in general, I think it's the whole spirit, as in the comedy that we are capable of creating around all of these things. It's quite crazy to see that we actually have a lot of advances in dealing and discussing many of the issues. That's what I was trying to go with all of this discussion, because oh yeah, we have issues. I don't know, we have issues like AI, we have issues like, I don't know, societal issues, wow, unavoidably, but at the same time it's not like we live in an era in which no one talks about them like before. If anything, sadly, yeah, we have way too many on that other stage of the another meme the guy who criticizes society from within society and never tries to change that, unavoidably, we might have way too many of those. I guess it's trying to slowly reconcile that fighting spirit of the person who actually wants to criticize with the nihilistic or pessimistic view that also became so more common with the realization that unavoidably we don't actually live so much in a. The word itself is not democracy, or I think it's something along the lines of meritocracy. I guess so, in which everybody gets to have this exact same opportunities and whatnot, something along those lines. Yeah, it's having to deal with that fact in a generational level, having to come into in yeah into terms with that idea on one hand, while on the other having also the desire to say something about against what feels wrong, and at the very least we are slowly trying to solve that. It's not like the people give up in that sense. Unavoidably, yeah, people do give up throughout the whole experience. It's understandable. That happens in all situations of life. It's not just here. People in all sorts of dreams end up giving up. And sadly, picking whichever kind of dream you want doesn't guarantee that you won't end up stumbling onto any unforeseen reason that might force you actually even to surrender in your pursuit of the thing which you say that you truly wanted to get, or something along those lines. So it's understandable. The point is, yeah, we we have those discourses trying to get a proper solution between them. And at the very least, we can make jokes out of stuff, and at the very least, we can slowly try to solve things. I guess I don't know. I don't want to infect what I am saying with more precise, although corroded words. Like, oh yeah, maybe we're gaining class consciousness. I don't think that's the proper term. I don't think that's the proper definition here. For example, it's more along the lines of we are just slowly society. Society comes into the conclusion that yeah, maybe we as individuals do have a little bit more power, but on the other hand, it does have a lot to do also with our willingness to discover stuff, to be capable of exploring, developing, and actually utilizing our time in finding out where is it that we can create an impact within the world and whatnot. That is what feels like is happening around the world in many virtual and also physical spaces. It's, I guess, feeling like not just I am maturating and I am the only one who is slowly growing up, but seeing that happening, yeah, throughout the different spaces that are capable of showing themselves to the rest of the world. And that feels good, even if unavoidably not every single one of them goes at the same speed, not every single one of them reaches the exact same conclusion. It doesn't matter. The point is, as a society, it gets to feel nice to see that we actually are quite capable of not getting fucking brought down by that whole discourse that was so popular when we were growing up. I don't know, bro. I once again, I feel like in some cases it's a proper analysis. Okay, let me open parenthesis here. I heard something that fucking tilted me so hard today. It was, oh yeah, no, because sometimes when we over generalize, the people, the person who does that, I don't overgeneralize because I want to take agency over what I am saying. Or the opposite. I overgeneralize because I don't want to do that. I overgeneralize while masking it as a proper speech. I don't know, man. I don't feel like I am that much stranded from the rest of the fucking world. I am pretty sure I remember having seen stuff like what I am trying to talk about in many areas of life. I'm not sitting here talking about, I don't know, fucking trauma that I suffered from my own house, saying, oh yeah, everybody went through that one particular experience of, I don't know, getting woken up by fucking hits in the head by a belt. No, that's not what I am over generalizing. I'm sure everybody who have a TV in their house always turned on, which was the most common experience in most households before we got to move ourselves so much into these virtual spaces, and we ended up finding so much of a common thread in the internet and such, and reducing ourselves more to our singularities instead of sharing spaces with other people and being also forced to share them. Once again, that TV was always turned on, not because every single person was accepting of that, but the point is not to criticize that. The point is to just try to continue talking about that. I guess also, yeah, closing the parenthesis, thank you. The point is, with things like that, which I assume were sort of normal, were not the rarest event to see anywhere, things like that happen in many areas, at least personally, yeah, led me to think that in many instances, what happened was you tried to go out there after having heard so many news and whatnot, and what the message was, oh yeah, the newer generations are fucking lost. They don't know what's going on in life and whatnot. And it was quite crazy to see that. To some degree, it was quite crazy to see how much of a necessity the older generations had to talk about how impossible it was for the current uh, younger adults to find out where they wanted to go with their life and whatnot. And once again, I don't think I'm talking from an incredibly singular space. I remember having heard that from many aspects of life. I am pretty sure it was a common experience. Not even just back then. We to some degree, we're not even capable of realizing that we do the same thing nowadays. Oh yeah. The childrens of today and tomorrow are so fucking cooked because they consume AI. I don't know, or we were capable of growing up with an over exposition to internet and to devices like a PC or a cell phone and whatever, and yet here we are. Our parents weren't like us with a fucking phone in their what was the word? In their pockets 24/7 like we do. And they didn't have that much of an attachment to stuff like that. They didn't have 5 hours of screen time like we do, And yet here we are. And the same thing happens with children. Oh yeah. They are consuming AI content since they are almost newborns. No, I don't know, man. Sometimes I think it's like I wouldn't say not like a generational trauma, but more like an endless cycle of, yeah. Everybody thinks that they had it the best, something along the lines of the protagonist main character syndrome, but generalized to all fucking generations. We all truly think that we have it the best, and suddenly that makes us forget that, yeah, every single one of us have fucking issues. Every single generation had issues. The point is, yeah, we particularly us, are doing good, and that's nice. And the goal that I was trying to go for was, yeah, and one of the many things that I do find useful is to compare that to what I used to hear. And it feels good to see that actually we have quite a lot of, not I wouldn't say exactly opportunities, to some degree, yeah, suddenly many of the aspects in which life seemed to be centered around before might be slowly, incredibly gone, as in maybe it has become far more rare for anybody to actually find themselves having possibilities out there compared to, or in the traditional spaces, in the traditional businesses and whatnot, and workplaces and such. Suddenly, that is slowly being eroded or looked, I'm gonna say locked down, but more like isolating itself from the rest of the world. It's like pretty much what happened already with something like academia, that slowly it stopped serving every single human being. Not everyone can nowadays actually aspire to get there. Not everyone can aspire to get a normal job, a 9 to 5 job, sadly. So it's fine, anyways. We still have other stuff to do, and we still have other ways to manage existence. Maybe, unavoidably. I'm not saying, oh yeah, and that is the best. We are all guaranteed the best lives. I'm not trying to bring the most positive message. The point is, despite all the conditions, we are here, and that's good enough. And I'm happy with that. And I think it's good that, yeah, first and foremost, the prediction of this generation is going to be fucking dead before they have 30 years hasn't come so true, at least so far. So the point was that, yeah, I guess. Thank you. Anyway, but let me continue. What I do find interesting is to see that, yeah, in many cases that happens in general, and I can say it feels good to see that happening in general. Although at the same time, that one I have to agree, it is quite crazy to see. Not let me say it like this: how we are slowly giving up so much of ourselves. I do think maybe that there are going to be some issues from here onwards in terms of not just our generation. It's a far more difficult discourse or analysis, let's say. It's more about the wow, yeah, we as entire societies we might slowly start to have far more issues. But in terms of generations, at least, we didn't fuck up as much. So that's at least that is a consolation prize of sorts, if anything. So I don't know. I lately I have been thinking about that. Maybe it is copium. Maybe sometimes it's necessary to at least find one thing to be happy about before complaining about everything else. It's quite meaningless to, or not meaningless. It's quite negative to never actually have something to be happy about. Not because the world doesn't have enough bad things. It might have more than enough of those, but at the same time, it's quite sad to live such an empty life. So in that sense, yeah, it's nice to have these consolation prizes of sorts of, yeah, we are surviving, and we are doing a good enough show, and we can continue doing so throughout the rest of existence and whatnot. And it's good to see that we might have Not exactly the most ensured future, but at least we have something that might last and that might get towards somewhere. And at, at that level, yeah, unavoidably, in a more personal level, most of the things do boil down into, can the person actually figure out how to continue their life? Not not all the systems that were already given, not all the structures and modes of continuing life have fallen down. The person only needs to actually figure out how to continue. Nowadays, it's necessary for any human to actually ask themselves which direction they want to take their life into. Sadly, but that has been always the case to some degree. There have always been some competitions that forced anybody to wonder and have an interest, or yeah, to generate an interest, to see where they might go and how they might deal with the events that life throws at them. That hasn't really changed. The particular events that might happen might have might be a little bit different. We don't have to struggle so much because we have horrible connections to internet. That isn't so much a common thing nowadays anymore. But maybe we have to worry a lot more about understanding and navigating the internet safely without, I wouldn't say unconsciously, it's more along the lines of carelessly selling all of our private data or leaking everything to the big companies without realizing that we actually did so in the process, you know? But, anyways, the point is, things like that can always happen. The way in which, or the thing that you particularly choose to worry about, changes throughout time, but there are always situations like that one. And the point is, yeah, we are, I guess we are good. We we still have a lot of issues anyways. So I was saying before, we still have a lot of issues. There are ways too many problems that sadly we have stopped thinking about in many ways. It's crazy to see that the popular opinion can be so easily manipulated in many ways. I guess it's to be expected, unavoidably, as always. Once you understand enough, it's not like it becomes a surprising thing, but sadly, the, the reality is that, yeah, we have always been incredibly influential, and there is nothing better than to not having to choose stuff for ourselves. It's one of the best promises since the days of old is that idea of, yeah, yeah, you don't have to worry about anything. Let me actually take the handle, or take the leadership in this trip. You know, don't ever worry and don't ever think about anything else. Just trust me, brother. Trust my judgment in this one. That's that has always been something that every single person likes to chase to some degree. That's why unavoidably all of us can easily, if anybody can present themselves with a good, solid enough, once again, presentation, we will unavoidably fall for that whole idea. It's bound to happening. It's not something that we can actually avoid, you know? But even if it is the case, It's good. It isn't like we actually. That's what I was trying to say before. To some degree, it doesn't mean that societies as a whole have actually condemned themselves just because we like to follow the leader or stuff like that. Sadly, it's that, yeah, in many cases, we, let me say like this, we do believe that there might be somebody who at some point might come and give us the solution, the easy fix, the magical fix to any problem, but at the same time, suddenly, when they don't come and when somebody tries to pose us that, we still have an amazing capacity to dethrone anybody who tries to occupy that position. The only thing that doesn't happen is that, yeah, we get to slowly continue doing the work of, and maybe if nobody ever comes to be that one character, we can still try, in a more general sense, to make things work in our own way, and to make things go in the right direction, even if there is no one central character to this story. And I don't know, at that level, the point is not, oh yeah, yeah, I wish we will change. Oh yeah, yeah, we will change and we will take the better course of action. It doesn't matter all that much. The point is, it doesn't happen that we always get to have all of that satisfaction and whatnot. Sadly, it doesn't get to be the case that we experience and go through all of that always. It's understandable to some degree, but it's just that, yeah, I don't know. Once again, even today, I guess I will say, I still hear way too many of those messages of, oh, yeah, 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 these newer generations are fucking lost. That expression of lost in the sauce, it's incredibly funny because in many ways we have finally modernized that whole expression onto something more of quote unquote us, of the something more hip, But it's the same thing as before of, oh yeah, being driving aimlessly through life, or wandering aimlessly through life and whatnot. The same thing as before, just in a new way of spelling the same concept. The point is, I don't know. I think we're good. I think we have way too much. Not just drama. Drama in itself is understandable. We are, the word is melodramatic about how we interpret all of these things and how we feel sometimes that it works subtly or not, I don't know if subtly. We don't have that many problems. Luckily enough, we don't have to deal with them in any way, in any capacity. And the crazy thing is to see that, yeah, yeah, we still have far more to also try and see and experience out there. And, and I don't know. Once again, I guess I kinda once I did lose myself in the fucking sauce. Life is good. That's the message. Thank you. Anyway, let me change topic. Thank you. And I don't know. I don't know. I I guess it is still trying to answer many of their questions about life in a way in which it does feel not just like a personal answer, but as always, that idea of maybe I can find a way to spell stuff that doesn't work just for me. It can happen. I can solve things just for myself. It is true. Wow, yeah, it is an incredibly realistic statement to say that and expect that, but at the same time, it can also to some degree happen. Not everything has to stay just in the individual level of existence. I guess, sadly enough, reality demonstrates way more than what we are capable of actually acknowledging in many cases that the world doesn't operate so much based solely on the singular of the people and the persons and such. In many other areas, things can also happen throughout all the levels of influence, so to speak, and that's, I guess, yeah, that's quite a positive thing, unavoidably, but I wouldn't say it is a responsibility. I guess it's just an interest that has to be actually proven. Something that actually, how much can you say that you believe in something like that? And then utilize your time in trying to make it actually happen. Then, anyways, that's more like I guess, a personal soul. Even if the point is to try to say something that does work out there, still, it's understandable, I guess, that it doesn't need to be offloaded onto here. That, oh yeah, today we are going to start the change into the world here in this channel. It's not that I don't think that it can happen. It's more along the lines of I believe to some degree it also is still not the proper way to do that. So it's better to find the proper course of action still. So moving on, as I said before, and and I don't know. On the other hand, kind of going back to what I was talking before, the other thing that does happen a lot more is that realization of, yeah, there are so many instances in which it becomes possible for us to utilize our time in learning and discovering stuff and, yeah, actually seeing new things and getting to feel and to learn that I'm still amazed by that, and I guess it becomes quite a surprising thing always. I don't know, personally, it feels to some degree, yeah, egotistical, but it's crazy to see how little people actually talks about that. You will assume that everybody can learn a lot about whatever they want, and then that if you were to realize that, you will be willing to talk about that. You will be interested in expressing how much you can actually utilize your time in discovering things that you like and you enjoy and such, and how much of a nice time can anybody gets to have. The deal? Ah, thank you. Welcome. See, I hope you're having a nice evening, a nice night. Yes. Welcome. Sorry, I was fucking lost in the sauce. I was ranting away. I was saying, read something. That was what I was trying to say. Sorry. Ah, your head hurts. Have you been consuming substances? Ranting about what? Yeah, yeah. I was saying about this thing of, you know, with time, I have come to see something crazy happen, and that is how little people talks actually about learning. You know, not because, oh yeah, yeah, learning in itself is such a hard task. No, 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 no. from the other perspective of um, this thing in which you find something that you actually care about and utilize your time on learning out that, you know. Also, a quick tip, I guess, in most cases, yeah, personally, let me say like that, at least personally, when I wake up and my head hurts, I try to stretch my neck. The expression is because you might have pinched a nerve. It's not exactly that, it's more along the lines of the medical explanation is the trapezoids, which are connected, which connect the back of your neck to your shoulders, might get too tense. So you might want to release some tension from that. It isn't exactly a nerve, it is more like a whole muscular section. But yeah, the point is try to stretch. Thank you. But I was saying, learning about stuff, learning about things is wonderful. And sadly, yeah, I don't see that happening enough. In terms of we, you, me, I, the world talks out that enough. It's like, oh yeah, the, the style of having to learn, the style of having to see anything new, and the issue of how to utilize your time discovering new ideas and opposing your previous consensus. I don't know, man. I think it's quite a funny activity, and I find it to be such a mind nurturing to some degree thing to do actively to pursue more knowledge out there. It's like we have lost the capacity to actually talk out of that and to be immersed in that process. And I don't know, I think it's always nice to think about that. It's one of those things suddenly that yeah becomes almost suppressed, I guess. It's it's always nice to be on the lookout for new information and to be interested in seeing and learning stuff. It's I don't know. I I always try. I I I guess I have that constant theme of trying to aim at this question in many ways, and I have come to the conclusion now that I think it has to do a lot with the older spirit of growing up and seeing that, yeah, there are some things that no matter how hard you try, you might never be capable of fully learning about and such. So, on that area of life, you give up. And it happens through or throughout enough instances of life that the common phenomena is then, yeah, you know what? I am actually going to fucking give up on anything that I might care because it's far easier for me to not develop an interest on anything and later on get hurt because I decided to utilize my time on trying to learn out something just to discover that once again I am not capable enough of following the whole line and to ever try to see if anything can actually stick throughout the rest of my life. That's what I find it to be such a sad thing, man. But anyways, whichever the reason it is, I think it is still also true. At least here as always, no? We have at the very minimum, we have spaces like this one in which that type of discourse becomes existent and becomes possible. And with that already, I feel good. Not because oh yeah, you know what I spend so much time learning. You wanna hear out everything that I learned today? What a nice thing I learned and you did. No. It's more along the lines of you do I can, man. I think it's sad to see that we don't focus on that all. And once again, I wish people were capable of talking about that more, but at least we have this. Yeah, the message is thumbs up. Believe that we can learn, find something, keep on reading, give it another try, I guess. I don't know. I finally understand the line of, yeah, if you don't like a book, you just fucking close it and that's it. And that's the end of the story. If you don't like what you're reading, you give up on that and you do something that you actually enjoy. Easy enough, you develop interest for things which actually nurture your soul, you know? It's not such a complicated precept. Once you get to apply that, to apply that to knowledge, which becomes so enforced to us, I don't know. I guess it's still complicated. But that is life, I guess. I'm still, for example, one of the many questions to some degree, because it isn't like, oh, yeah. Only my personal experience in that sense. Based on what I have come to understand, one of the many explanations for that has to do with, yeah, if you haven't moderated enough, you are not going to have the capacity to actually understand why stuff of that sort is in any way useful. Not because you cannot get the ideas, but rather because the emotional side of the brain gets to have a higher primacy in you. That's why emotional maturity comes later in life. That is directly associated with brain development. So that's why in many cases, or not in many cases, that's why so many other areas of life end up reflecting that same concept of, yeah, only the people who get to develop themselves enough can then find enough satisfaction in stuff that might require a lot more control of things like emotions. Like this. You have to sit with the discomfort to actually read something. It might not be the most enjoyable thing compared to, I don't know, as always, playing a video game, getting to watch a new show, a new movie, anything, but it is still something that, with enough will force, willpower, gets to be done. But, once again, somebody who doesn't get to be developed enough, literally, not because of, oh, yeah, I am better than them. No, it's just based on the human biology itself. Just because of that, somebody younger might not get that possibility and might not get the message in the essence of that. I can just repeat the words, but I don't get why it happens. The emotional side is literally fighting with all of its will, and wins far more than if I were to be a lot more mature. So stuff like that does take time, sadly. But anyway, it's not like it never happens, I guess. I guess unavoidably. The scores later on time, yeah, can sort of warp, I guess. It does transform itself onto something different. It does become quite interesting once you analyze it. It has that whole aspect of, and yeah, you know what happens also? Once we try to sit down and once we try to think about it, one of the funny things is, we don't actually have so much of a hard time doing something that requires interest once we understand the reasons. Even if, unavoidably, it might not be the most enjoyable task. But can we truly develop anything to be that understandable for ourselves? It does look back onto the tradition of, yeah, I might have never given myself the chance to, I guess, understand our things. See why I should be doing something that otherwise can only feel like a minimally displeasing activity. And I don't know. That I guess can be the case for many people. Anyway, anyway. The point is, stuff like that can be anyways overcome, so that's good enough. And I guess yeah, it's a different idea. Let me switch on to something different, but it also is related. I finally am starting to slowly get a lot more how important also something along the lines of rating is. I guess I finally get to on that same path of understanding the stuff that happens, developing a more proper connection with the stuff like, oh yeah. It is an incredibly meaningless activity because it supposedly is the basic aspect of life and such. But even if that is supposed to be the case and what's not, one of the funny things that happens is, you know, we get to have a nice time, we get to have a better time once we get to understand mechanisms of that sort. And yeah, indeed, in this case, it gets to be even something as quote unquote meaningless as simply breathing more. I guess the proper word isn't even more slowly, more purposefully plays such a that yeah. Even something like breathing more purposefully can play such a big role in the daily life of anybody, therefore of myself. Therefore, it has become quite an interesting activity to actually try to do that. I guess personally, let me say like this, for example, one of the many things that I have realized lately is I don't actually have a such a hard time anymore lately, since I actually understood the message of, oh yeah, you need to control your own breathing and you need to pay attention to yourself. In this case, if you're trying to fall asleep, you cannot just expect yourself to do that out of nowhere. You cannot just, this whole idea of, oh yeah, you cannot willingly instantaneously fall asleep. You just make sure that everything is set right so that you can fall asleep. Okay, one of the easiest conditions is in this case, yeah, actually enabling something along the lines of how it's that's why it feels uncomfortable because it's supposedly something quote unquote minimal. We don't actually, in many cases, I guess, understand how it works. I don't know. I don't. I didn't spend that much time thinking about that when I don't know. Let's say a month or two ago. Finally, it gets to have a better impact, a more noticeable usage in life and such. And I guess it only, yeah, it begs the question of, and how many other things are like that, which might even be minimal, which can change the way in which life gets to be experienced. I don't know. It's to some degree unavoidable. It's sad always to think about stuff like that. It's the endless. Oh yeah, I could be doing even better. Not because I need to be uh, grinding to the utmost capacity to make sure that I am living all the good things that I can, but just you know what, I can actually take care of myself. Myself. It's not so much of oh yeah yeah. I will trust that this external thing will make sure that the stuff works for me, and I will leave it in the hands of another thing. It's I guess it is still to some degree egoism, but more like a proper claim, reclaiming the proper terrain in which it does matter to actually believe that one has an importance in their own existence. In this case, unavoidably, because we do have such an importance in our own lives. It's not so much about, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I heard that, I don't know, this one bill. I heard that this one external thing that I have to almost break my back for is going to save my life. And only that is going to work and nothing else. But it is still. Once again, I had this conversation with the me from a year ago, and it will sound like, I don't know, I'm fucking lunatic nowadays. If I if I were to hear that once again, a year ago even. So it's fine anyways. The point is, no matter how crazy things sound sometimes, it's good to be willing, at the very least, as always, to try to see, even for the sake of, oh yeah, this is complete garbage. What you are right now saying is completely stupid, and I get to live with the certainty that what you are saying is absolutely ridiculous just for the sake of that. Trying stuff out has become a far more practical mentality than to just, oh yeah, you know what, let me not do anything for myself. I don't know. Something along those lines, I guess. Anyways, something different. And I didn't actually say that much. Once again, because I don't like to do that, I don't like the idea of now we're going to dedicate ourselves to talk out all the books that I have to read. That's sort of, no, I wouldn't say exactly boring, but it's meaningless to some degree because I have a tendency, actually, I don't even understand why, to read so much fucking niche stuff. So it's understandable. It's like, oh yeah, today we're going to be talking about this book that literally me and 20 other people heard about. So it's quite pointless in that sense. The point is, yeah, it's always surprising to see still how many piles upon piles of stuff there are out there available. As always, what I was saying before, it's I am still amazed. Let me say like that. I am still amazed by how much we have actually achieved a proper democratization of knowledge. It is that thing did happen. Sadly, it happened silently enough so that we still have issues navigating around that and getting to develop knowledge in ways in which we can demonstrate that to others and not even develop knowledge. It's more along the lines of develop the capacity to traverse the spaces which won't enable anyone to find the knowledge which they are looking for. That thing has still not been properly expressed, I guess, but it isn't exactly all that difficult. Yeah, I haven't even thought about that in a particular way of we have so much content out, so many meaningless things. I have been I don't even know if it deserves to actually be said in terms of yeah. Let's create an actual long thesis about that. Anyway, with two working neurons can realize that nowadays, for example, one of the many ways in which the IS more go to pseudo, not even scientific, pseudo psychological, I guess that would be a category. Algorithm works is yeah. Let's try to do fucking tarot, but instead of admitting that it is tarot, we are going to do quotes unquote psychological profiling of everything, of literally every single phenomena that happens in life. Let's do that. Instead of so much of that, we can utilize our time in finding, discovering, and understanding how to navigate the World Wide Web. Wow. But still, one second. Sadly, it is something only that in many cases comes with enough practice. It's I do understand that notion of yeah, even if we didn't exactly wake up from the get-go, we were born with a PC in our houses, every single one of us, and we didn't have access to internet like let's say the people who are having children right now. Okay, even if that is true, we still have far more capacities to navigate internet, and that is a far more intrinsic skill that we have developed through years of refining. So it's quite hard to express those more unconscious modes of navigating anything of that same sort. It's like explaining how to go onto a bike, supposedly, but at the same time, it is still possible to make it make sense. What I have also come to realize is, sadly, in many ways or in many cases, it doesn't fully function like that. There are still things that can be said. There are still ideas that can help. So you suppose that the other person doesn't know how to do the activity, okay? Then you realize that there are still ways in which you can guide them. Maybe you cannot give them the instinct to understand how to drive a bike, but you can give them enough knowledge so that the moment in which they get on the bike, they understand how it is going to operate, even if there is still an aspect that they need to refine by themselves. There are many other areas that can be slowly experienced without having to go through them by oneself. But anyways, the point is, I guess it would be an interesting challenge to actually try to talk out that one. Not one day, not here. In that sense, I guess it's yeah. probably get another what I said before. One of those many concepts that is worth enough, even I guess, making onto a bigger project of sorts. I guess so. I don't know. Having believing that it can have an impact, therefore dedicating enough time so that it does actually get to have an impact and not just staying in the easiest level of not just analysis but rather action and such. That's my not just theory but analysis. Thank you. Anyways, I I probably should drink some water actually. I don't even know how much I have been talking without drinking anything. Okay. Yeah. Indeed, I wasn't so wrong. I. I don't know. You think that you would be. You grow up at some point and you actually don't need to ask yourself, am I thirsty or not? You don't actually need to do that supposedly, but no, yeah. It still happens. Why? Ah, such many cases. It's fine. Anyways. The point is, moving on. I don't know. I haven't. Let me. Nice. I have something that I want to talk about, but I have been having such a hard time even properly figuring a way to talk out that at all. In any way, that's the issue. How to make it make sense. I'm slowly starting to understand that whole area of stuff that is related to that whole aspect of the unconscious mind and whatnot. I understand it to some degree why it feels so esoteric when you read out that. I don't want to say that it is about work, but sadly, yeah, it could be expressed a little bit better. I don't remember having seen anybody describe it in terms that are fully understandable. There is so much guesswork that you have to do about all of that. Mostly, yeah, yeah. Mostly, I say this because I have been continuing to try and analyze that whole idea of yeah, yeah. Particularly, let me before actually getting to the conclusion. There is this whole idea that when you have to read the stuff that I have to read of, oh yeah, yeah, you have to go through Freud and then through Lacan and whatnot, and many of that people talk about psychoanalysis, and one of the ideas of psychoanalysis is it cannot be taught. I have learned, and that's similar to what I was talking about before. Even it could actually be taught. It could be expressed. You can reach some. things if you actually are willing to do so. But it doesn't happen. And sadly, it's not so hard to understand, even. It's not so complicated or so impossible to reach. Unavoidably, I'm not saying it like, oh yeah, tomorrow we come here, I sit here and I say 5 words and everybody understands automatically every single theory that has to do with the unconscious and the pre-conscious and whatnot. No, okay, not saying that. I am saying it can be expressed in ways in which you don't have to go through the whole aspect of, oh yeah, yeah, you cannot learn about that, but you can experience that, and you can learn and understand it by yourself. But I don't know, it's in many areas or in many professions, that's the thing that happens anyways, and it's fine. It's, I guess, not, I wouldn't say it's fine. I would say we have normalized that anyways, so it's all good. It isn't an actual issue, it's just a thing which we could keep working on probably, but we don't we don't occupy ourselves with actually working on them. We just think that we could, and with that we find ourselves satisfied, I guess. But yeah, the point was, and there are many ideas of that sort that get to make sense. And sadly, in my case, yeah, I even want to bring that, or I wanted to bring that up because something crazy is to see how the moment in which, at least when you assume that you understand the stuff, it becomes so much part of what you say. I guess unavoidably, I have been trying to stay vigilant of not obfuscating the actual point that I am trying to make, but sadly, it seems to be the case that unavoidably, no matter how much attention you pay, you're still going to, by learning about anything, you're still going to utilize things, concepts, and descriptions from what you know, no matter how hard you try to avoid them. So it's, I wouldn't say irritating, it's just something that forces anyone to utilize a lot more caution when they are speaking. And in my case, yeah, it has become quite an interesting task to actually see that happening. But man, you wouldn't have expected that, yeah, so much of the things that you want to talk out, once again, in places like this one, in which the idea is just to be free, would require so much, I wouldn't say just recognition, I guess. It's not censorship, it's more along the lines of just proper codification. I I feel like in many ways the issue becomes we actually forget what we are trying to say or for whom we are trying to talk. And therefore it does feel a lot more like just, oh yeah, you know what, it's, I will assume that everybody will understand, not because I understand who I am talking to, but because I will just focus on my own understanding. This whole idea of I don't think about you when I am talking, I only think about my internal perception of what I am saying. And only if those things feel good enough for me, I say them. If they don't feel good for me, I don't say any of those things. And by that principle only, then yeah, communication becomes far more difficult. But I don't know, it, I am describing it as if it was the worst thing ever. It's just an act of consciousness, one of the many. It's just, I don't know, like learning, once again, learning how to breathe, you pay attention enough and you realize instantaneously and you fix it the moment in which you see it slowly straying from the normal path. It's not all that complicated, but yeah, it does take some time to actually do properly. And it's just, once again, I guess, surprising on the other hand to see many other areas of life, to see many other people still fall onto that. I guess, I don't know. I I remember having had a conversation with somebody and them telling me what we were talking about. I don't even remember what was the context exactly why, but they said, "Oh yeah, yeah," and see this thing. And I remember watching what they talked about afterwards, and it actually was one of those cases in which I don't get who I am talking to. I don't care about who I am talking to at all. And the person who was speaking, therefore, said so many things that were, for the average person, completely impossible to understand. It's crazy to see how hard sometimes we make it for the rest to actually get what we are trying to say when we don't pay attention. I guess, yeah, in that sense, I said before, it can become a second nature of sorts. Once you practice that enough, unavoidably, it requires enough repetition, but anybody can do that. It's not like, oh, yeah, yeah, and, and only me, because I am a highly aggravated person. So, no, man, it's that's delusional. That's incredibly delusional. Anybody can actually learn to talk to anyone with a proper connection. I always try to blame stuff like patience because I assume that's the common link for all of that. If not, I don't know. Empathy, supposedly? I don't know. I don't really understand what else can it be if not that. Saying things that anybody can understand is not that hard, I think. But anyways, I don't know. I'm trying to think. I don't think I have that much more to add today. I think I am happy. Yeah, I think today it was a good enough. Yep. So I am happy at least with that. I don't know. I guess. Yeah. Let me announce, quote unquote. Probably tomorrow we're not going to have any bar. I guess. I haven't still sold my. I remember having said that when Sin came last time. That yeah, I have to not continue. Re take re up. How do you say that? Not a rework. Rework is a different expression. Uh, work again, I guess, on my on that thing which leads to connecting with other human beings. That socializing aspect of me doing, because sadly stuff like the bar doesn't happen if once again the host, being me, doesn't talk with other people. So ah at some point it's going to happen. Trust the process, I guess. Until then, I don't know, tomorrow, I guess what I want to have, probably I haven't thinking about it. Probably, if everything goes right, then we have Harata instead of the bar, taking into consideration that yeah, it might not happen. Anyways, I don't know. Hey, things are like that. Anyways, so you learn to live with life. But it's okay. So that being said, I don't know. Yeah, you know what? Not much else to add. Thank you. And yeah, so then let me properly say that. Then thank you for everything. It has been a very good night, a very good day, and yeah, whenever we get to see ourselves next time, we are going to have yet another nice time. But until then, not just until then. Even if it doesn't happen, thanks for everything. Thanks for the patience, for the attention, for the time. It was good. And yeah, as always, take care, hydrate, uh, rest, go out, take some sun, breathe, smile, everything. I don't know. Be responsible too. And yeah, that's it for me, at least. So, good night.